Then into the evening time, further wet and windy weather starts to move back in across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. Over the next few days, it stays wet and windy across the northwest, but temperatures start to rise in the sunshine, particularly by midweek towards the southeast, highs around 28 Celsius.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win an incredible £30,000 in cash. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. Time is ticking. Get your entry in now. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
One local cricket team was made up entirely of one family. The Jollens.
The Newmarket midweek seconds played Thurlow and Old Milgreenian seconds, captained by, here we go, James Jolland. He played alongside family members Henry, Freddie, George, Jack, Archie, Ryan, Brandon and Daniel. Even if slightly controversial, one of the umpires was a Jolland to Stephen the umpire.
Yes, well, the Jolland family mostly live in Wickenbrook in Suffolk and have played for 4 years for Dullingham Village team before it merged with Newmarket. So that's the entire backstory. We're delighted to be joined now by Captain James Jolland and teammate and brother Nick Jolland. Really good to see you both this morning. This is incredible. How did you get the entire family involved in cricket?
Well, we started the club about 3 years ago, and it was more friends and family. But then it had this opportunity of this week to get everyone involved because everyone was back and they all played cricket, various levels, and the youngest being 12, George, and we're all available. So we thought 1 week we'd do the whole team.
You booted the friends out for 1 week only?
Yeah, they were very good about it. They come and watched. They supported us.
How did the other team feel about having an umpire with related ties?
Well, the captain of the Thurlow is one of our friends. We do know him, so he was fine with it, and there was no controversial decisions at all.
I think it's a fantastic strategy.
No, yeah.
You could plant somebody.
That's the way
in a position of authority. It's a great idea.
Oh, look, here's the scorecard we can see on the screen with all of your names on there. Some fantastic English names on there. How does it get between the family members? Is it very, very competitive between you all?
As you get older, you work on that, don't you? And you keep that competitiveness out of it. And it's really to play with your sons. It's a great thing to do.
Yeah, it's a lovely
we've
thing
all
to
got
do.
sons in it. That's why we do it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on Sunday, the 25th of August, a bank holiday weekend. Hoping you're having a damn fine one out there. And this is The Weekend on GB News. Now, we've got some top stories for you. Labour crackdown on dodgy car washes, hiring illegal migrants, with more than 120 bosses fined for helping smuggling gangs by exploiting workers made to live and work in appalling conditions for a pittance. Then the Metropolitan Police has confirmed there will be a very significant policing presence at Notting Hill Carnival today and tomorrow. But should the carnival be postponed until things calm down, given the situations we've seen recently? And TV presenter Kirsty Allsop is outraged after she was quizzed by social services for allowing her 15-year-old son to go interrailing across Europe. Are people just overreacting and nanny state getting involved too much? I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. Well, I hope you're having a lovely bank holiday weekend out there and the sun is shining wherever you are. Make the most of it. Now, but this show is nothing without you and your views. So it's the weekend. Let's have a chat. Let me know your views about all the comments, all the subjects we're talking about today. It's a really simple way of doing this. I always try and remember. You just visit gbnews.com/yoursay and join in the conversation. I'll start a conversation, and I promise faithfully, my favourite bit of the show is talking to you lot. And I will try and read as many out as I can this time. I promise, because I've got a really rubbish panel, to be honest with you. I need your company. So, yeah, GB News, I'm joking. GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and former Conservative advisor Claire Pearcell, who are absolutely gorgeous, apart from the fact one of them is actually wearing the same colour as me. I do this a lot. But before we get straight into today's stories, let's get the news with the lovely Tatiana Sanchez.
Dawn, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories this hour. Authorities say the suspect in custody for a stabbing attack in Western Germany that killed 3 people and injured 8 is a 26-year-old Syrian man. German police say the suspect turned himself in and admitted to the crime. The Islamic State terror group claimed responsibility for the attack, which happened in a market square, saying it was carried out by one of its members. And today, a German federal prosecutor has confirmed that to be true. A church service has been taking place today to remember and pay respect to those who lost their lives. Overnight barrages of missiles were fired from Israel towards Lebanon as the Israeli military confirmed it launched airstrikes on Hezbollah targets early this morning. The Israeli military says around 100 fighter jets carried out what it described as preemptive strikes across southern Lebanon this morning. The militant group Hezbollah later fired rockets and missiles back into northern Israel. They say it's in response to the killing of one of its top commanders in an Israeli airstrike in Beirut last month. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel would take all measures necessary to defend itself. Today's attack came as Egypt hosts a new round of talks aimed at ending Israel's war against Hamas. Now, back home, the Prime Minister's set to warn that things will get worse in the UK before they get better. In a speech on Tuesday, Sir Keir Starmer's likely to say there are no quick fixes to remedy what he'll call the rubble and ruin left by the Conservatives. He'll also continue to argue that the last government concealed the true state of the public finances. But the Conservatives have accused Labour of fabricating a financial black hole to clear the way for tax rises and have called for the Prime Minister to reverse his Chancellor's cuts to winter fuel payments, arguing these would leave pensioners in the cold. And as you've just been hearing, immigration enforcement officers have detained 75 suspected illegal workers as part of a week-long crackdown. Officers visited more than 225 businesses in the past week, particularly car washes, with over 120 receiving civil penalties for employing illegal workers, according to the Home Office. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says the government will ensure those who break the rules face the full force of the law. Businesses found to be employing people illegally face fines of up to £45,000 per worker for the first offence and up to £60,000 per worker for repeat offenders. Now, His Majesty the King has appointed a composer of the London 2012 Paralympic Games as Master of the King's Music. Erilyn Wallen, CBE, was also commissioned to compose pieces marking the Golden and Diamond Jubilees for the late Queen Elizabeth. The Belize-born 66-year-old was the first woman to receive an Ivor Novello Award for classical music and the first black woman to have a work featured in the Proms. The Master of the King's Music is an appointment made by the Sovereign and granted to a musician of distinction who's added to the musical life of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. In other news, the billionaire founder of encrypted messaging app Telegram has been arrested in France. That is according to local reports. Pavel Durov was detained after his private jet landed at an airport in North Paris. According to officials, the 39-year-old was arrested under a warrant for offences related to the popular messaging app. Russia's embassy in France is taking immediate steps, they say, to clarify the situation. That's according to Russia's TASS state news agency. Telegram's particularly popular in Russia, Ukraine and former Soviet Union states. And finally, officials have confirmed there will be a very significant policing presence at Notting Hill Carnival today. Around 1 million people are expected to take part in the annual celebration of Caribbean culture, marking one of Europe's largest street parties. 7,000 officers are due to be on duty weeks after rioting and violent disorder erupted on the streets across the UK. The Notting Hill Carnival began in 1960 as a way to unite London's diverse immigrant communities. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. She does have the most beautiful smile, doesn't she? She worked so hard, particularly yesterday. Right, OK, now let's get straight into today's stories, shall we? Now, immigration enforcement officers have detained 75 suspected illegal workers as part of a week-long crackdown. Officers visited more than 225 businesses in the past week, particularly car washes, with 122 receiving civil penalties for employing illegal workers. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says it's completely wrong that dodgy employers can work hand in glove with the smuggling gangs who risk people's lives to bring them here illegally and push them into off-the-books employment. Now, it sounds brilliant, doesn't it? But the devil is always in the details with these things. So joining me now is GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley to explain exactly a little bit more about the detail of this. Olivia, good morning. Lovely to see you. So tell us more about what's going on with this one.
Well, Yvette Cooper is determined to crack down on the number of illegal immigrants working in various industries across the UK. Sort of car washes, nail bars tend to be the obvious ones. The Home Secretary is hopeful that the way to solving the illegal immigration crisis is to up the number of deportations. And she might have a point. According to the statistics that were released earlier this week, the number of small boat arrivals are actually going down. But the problem is that of those who come here, a very small proportion are actually being deported. Most of them are just getting into either sort of the black market of work or end up claiming asylum after a very, very long and drawn-out process. So Yvette Cooper's trying to sort of up the number of... She's been going around, well, not her, but her police officers have been going around the UK sort of seizing these illegal workers, and hopefully she thinks that will bring an end, or at least massively reduce the numbers of illegal immigrants over here. The Conservatives don't think that this is the sort of silver bullet to the illegal immigration crisis. And obviously the question to Keir Starmer and Yvette Cooper is, OK, yes, maybe you can make a dent in the number of illegal migrants who are already here, but while there's no disincentive for people to come over here, it's a sort of never-ending problem. You solve the people who are here, but then you have a huge, huge influx of people arriving in small boats. And that's why the Conservative Party wanted to do the Rwanda plan as a sort of disincentive to stop migrants from coming here. Of course, that didn't work. It's been completely abandoned by this government, and they're trying a totally different tack. I wonder if they'll have any more success.
Olivia, look, of course it's brilliant. In theory, it's brilliant. But as I said, the devil in the detail is that 75 illegal migrant workers is just literally a drop in the ocean, considering the illegal migration figures we're currently seeing.
Well, exactly. And I mean, that is a huge part of the problem. It's looking as though in every, from the raids that they've done so far, in 1 in every 3 organisations, they're finding an average of 1 illegal migrant working there. This is a very, very resource-intensive programme that Yvette Cooper is running. And so far, we just don't really seem to be seeing the results. Perhaps what the Home Secretary is hoping is that, much like the idea behind the Rwanda plan, if illegal immigrants can see that those who come here and try and get into the work system can't stay, end up being deported, then perhaps they won't come at all. But, you know, that might be a little bit far-fetched. Not all of the migrants who are coming over here in small boats want to get into the black market of work. Lots of them are hopeful that they're going to be able to claim asylum when they get here, which is a very different story altogether. So it may work as a disincentive a little bit, but it may not quite have the the effect that the Home Secretary is hoping for. And as for actual results compared to resources, so far, it doesn't seem to be particularly cost-effective.
Yeah, and Olivia, just quickly, before you go, given that we saw the figures released this week that many of the people in the boats coming over, the vast majority were from Afghanistan, and we understand why they're fleeing Afghanistan, but we can't deport people back to Afghanistan, can we? So, since we've got rid of the Rwanda deal, what is Yvette Cooper planning to do with the illegal migrants who have come from Afghanistan? I mean, what's she going to do with them? Where's she going to send them?
Well, that's a really, really good question. I think I'm right in saying that 94% of the migrants who come over here come from countries where we wouldn't be able to deport them and probably wouldn't want to deport them. So what is she going to do about that? The Labour Party so far doesn't really seem to have an answer. I was speaking to Mike Tapp, the Labour MP this morning, who's the MP for Dover and Deal, right on the front line of the immigration crisis, and he was maintaining the line that Keir Starmer is just going to smash the gangs. Well, smashing the gangs is obviously easier said than done. Rishi Sunak clearly wanted to break up the criminal gangs that are responsible for the people smuggling trade in the Channel. But there isn't some sort of big boss man who can just be taken out like in a sort of prime time crime drama. These are very nimble gangs. They're small gangs. They're very broken up. They're dispersed. If one is broken down and taken out, then another one will start up at, a few miles down the Channel. This is a really, really difficult problem to address. It's sort of Medusa's head, cut off one and another just emerges. And apart from that, we don't really have more flesh on the bones of how Labour is going to deal with the illegal immigration crisis.
Good points, very well made. Thank you very much, Olivia Utley, political correspondent of GB News. Thank you. OK, now, huge debate. I mean, no one seems to have any answers to this, so let's see if the panel can supply a little bit of an answer. Nigel, I'm looking at you, Nigel Nelson. You're on Team Yvette Cooper, aren't you?
I certainly am, yes.
Look, I mean, the numbers are 75. I mean, considering the numbers we see coming over here.
Yeah, these just in a week, though. I mean, they started this on Monday, so they've caught those in a week. I mean, when Claire was at the Home Office, that she was catching these people, so I don't know if she caught more of these illegal workers than Yvette Cooper has. The big difference here is you've taken 1,000 people, 1,000 civil servants away from the Rwanda programme, and you've put them on enforcement. So the argument would be, if that works, that you will catch more people over a period of time by doing that.
But the same question's asked Olivia. If these people happen to be from a country where we can't deport them, Afghanistan, which is where many of the small boat migrants are coming from at the moment, what do we do with them? We can't send them back to Afghanistan. We could have sent them back to... We've sent them to Rwanda. Had that scheme been operating, it's not now. So what does Yvette Cooper do with them?
Well, I mean, when it comes to Rwanda, we'd have only ever sent 300 there initially anyway, so that would hardly make a dent in the people coming across the Channel. What has happened under the Illegal Migration Act is that you can't send people out of the country, but they can't stay either. They're inadmissible because they've come across the Channel. Your only answer there is to process the asylum claims that are genuine and weed out the ones which aren't genuine. Then you have to see which of those can be sent back to a safe country.
But if it's Afghanistan, they can't go back.
No, they can't. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, in a sense, we should have got the Afghanistan resettlement scheme much better sorted out. We did pretty well with the Ukrainians, pretty well with the Syrians. We did very badly with the Afghans, who, in fairness, they put their lives on the line to help us during the war.
Yes, no, many of them did. So, Claire, how many illegal migrants did you catch when you were at the Home Office?
Well, that's obviously couldn't possibly comment on their operational numbers, but it is a really interesting one, and it's all very well to go round and arrest 75 individuals for illegal working. Yeah, great, that's marvellous. But what are you doing about the people that are bringing them over here in the first place? You can say you're going to smash the gangs, but you're not really doing that. And when you look at the penalties involved for those people, if you do catch them, they're not particularly high. Then this is an industry that is worth billions of pounds.
Yes.
And if you're talking about maybe 3 years in prison, if you're lucky, probably
Well,
out
that's
in
not gonna
about
happen. We
18
haven't got any
months.
prison spaces.
No, and this is, you know, this is going back. Then it's not much of a disincentive, really, because 18 months you'll be out, it'll be a junior sort of gang member, it's never going to be the higher-ups. So there isn't that disincentive, and just by taking 75 workers out of that...
In a week.
Yes, and how many hours and thousands and thousands of taxpayers' money has been spent to just remove those 75 people?
You would accept that enforcement is about doing that, is about planning, about spending money, about catching the right people. I mean, that's how the police operate when they're catching crooks.
OK, but you're catching those people who are working in those kind of industries, but you're not actually dealing with the major problem of, you know, smashing the gangs, which we've heard enough of this year from Keir Starmer. What about that? How is that going? Because at the moment I see absolutely nothing being done on smashing the gangs. It doesn't matter how many Labour MPs
They've only had 50 days to actually do this.
But you're lording over 75 individuals being taken out of the black economy. So you can't have it always.
I appreciate it's not a huge number, and there are probably thousands of people doing this. But you have to start somewhere. I think it's quite reasonable to spend the time and resources on catching those people.
It's quite an easy target. When you're looking at where do illegal workers tend to end up, and it's places like nail bars, it is places like car washes, the sex industry, and maybe some restaurants. So, you know, those are quite easy to go after. It's quite low-hanging fruit. But there has been no work done on the smashing of the gangs. And we keep hearing about it.
50 days. I mean, give them a chance to get the new Border Security Command up and running.
Which they haven't even recruited the main person into that role yet.
But it's been
now,
50
I would have
days.
thought... Yeah, and well, you're saying that's not enough time to recruit somebody for one of your major flagship
policies.
policies.
A major law enforcement force up in action.
You don't think that was important?
But I mean, what Yvette Cooper has done is been able to recruit these 1,000 people for enforcement. They were the ones who were working on the ridiculous Rwanda
So they're not
scheme.
really necessarily been recruited, they've just been reassigned.
Yeah, OK.
So, all right, so there's a little bit of fudging of some figures
Yes, they've been reassigned to a different job, but probably a better job than wasting their time on Rwanda, which wouldn't have worked in the first place.
Yeah, well, I don't disagree with that, but I think if you are looking to make a real difference, you do need to look at the criminal gangs, you need to look at the gang masters who bring these people in, and you have to look at the trafficking routes. There is so much that they haven't done yet, and all of their grand talking...
I mean, that's what the Tories were doing, weren't they? So they were talking about smashing the criminal gangs. The question really is this a better way of doing it by using counter-terror laws to try and catch them? So you're bringing in spies from MI5 and things like that to make it easier. But it is early days yet. I mean, you're not going to be able to do this within a couple of weeks, are you?
Well, the thing is with this, where there's a will, there's a way, right? I mean, they get things moving pretty damn fast with the rioters. I mean, you sort of like 1 minute you were... I'm not condoning rioting, by the way, before anyone says anything. 1 minute you're chucking a brick, the next you're in court and you're in jail. So Keir Starmer can, to get his bottom in gear, to put it politely, when he needs to. So 50 days and they still, as Claire points out, haven't recruited someone who's in charge
But they
of
were
this.
caught by existing law enforcement agencies. We're talking about creating a new one.
Yeah, no, but giving someone the job in charge of it, that doesn't take 50 days. If you...
No. Surely, if that has been your main policy idea, you would have an idea of who you wanted for that role. You would have opened up the recruitment as soon as you were in power to do so.
The recruitment is opened up. They just haven't found the person yet.
But as Dawn said, where there's a will, there's a way. And if you can get people through the criminal justice system very quickly for riots...
Well, you know what? Actually,
you know what?
for once, Nigel Nelson, there are 3 people around this desk possibly in agreement. I totally agree. I mean, actually, Team Claire all the way. You do a brilliant job. You'd have had that job filled straight away and sorted this problem.
There you go. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Right, OK, for all the best analysis and opinion on that story, please do go to our website, which is gbnews.com. Now, it's some good news. Do you want some good news? It's time for the Great British Giveaway and your chance to win that £30,000 in cash. But you have to hurry, because lines close at 5 o'clock on Friday. And here's all the details you need to know and how you can be the next winner. Go for it.
It's the final week to see how you could win an incredible £30,000 in cash. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take. Buy that treat that always seemed out of reach. Or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. Time is ticking. Get your entry in now. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Oh, just going to get some juicy gossip there from Claire at the time at the Home Office. I could tell you, but we can't. We're sworn to secrets, evidently. I'm Dawn Newsom, and this is GB News, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. Officers have said they cannot rule out terrorism and are investigating the teenager's possible connection to attack for stabbing in Germany. A shocking story that's not going away anywhere soon. Got worse overnight. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you soon.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Let's have a look at this story in the Telegraph, Charlie. And this is about Anglican Church, the Church of England, dropping the word church in favour of something a bit more modern sounding. Words such as community. Why are we afraid of the word church?
Well, that's my question. I mean, you've got to assume that they think it solves some kind of problem. But I think, you know, there are a lot of people who feel very strongly about their particular religious institution, whatever they all have different names, don't they? And if you rename one, do you have to rename all of them? Can we no longer use an individual name for different religions, community buildings?
Are you religious?
I'm spiritual.
You sound like him. Yeah.
No, certainly.
Oh, don't get Ellie started on me.
Do I believe in a God? Yes. Do I believe in any of the particular gods that are offered to us? Still undecided.
I'm like you. I said exactly that.
You two are the same. You two are exactly the same.
What about you, Anna? Are you particularly religious?
Well, I'm not a proper religious. I won't name myself as a religious, but I really do respect religions. And we have bigger problems to think about.
Is it a sign of where we're at in this secular society?
Yes.
We're moving more and more towards that. The Anglican Church feels that the only way to be relevant is to take away any reference to church going, to being religious.
I think if the substance of what you're offering is good, it doesn't matter what it's called. You know, so if people are going to find solace and peace in a place that makes them feel better, they're not going to care too much about what it's called. So I think relabeling it, rebranding it, I don't know, maybe it'll help, maybe it won't, but it's going to certainly upset a lot of people, I should think.
And people whose religion is important to them and kind of central to their lives, you can imagine.
Absolutely.
There's a reason Justin Welby is nicknamed by some quarters the Archbishop of Woke. Maybe this adds fuel to the fire, who knows?
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Newsom. I hope you're having a lovely bank holiday weekend out there. Now, the horrific story that broke on Friday night about the stabbing at a festival in Germany. German police have reportedly arrested the person suspected of the stabbings, which have left 3 people dead in the town in western Germany. The suspect in custody is a 20-year-old Syrian man who admitted to the crime, German authorities revealed earlier this morning. The Islamic State terror group has claimed responsibility for the attack, which they say was revenge for Muslims in Palestine and everywhere. Meanwhile, in France, French police say they have arrested a man suspected of setting fires and causing an explosion outside a synagogue. Not good news, is it? None of it. It's fairly worrying. Let's see what my panel make of this, Nigel and Claire. Claire, I'm coming to you first. I mean, we saw when the story broke yesterday about a stabbing in Germany at a festival, a festival of diversity, music, songs, dancing, celebrating 650 years of the town. And when you heard of a stabbing and you thought, I'm sorry, you can't help it these days, you instantly think of terrorism, don't you? As it happens, our worst fears did come true, and that has now been confirmed that there is a terrorist link to this one. What do you make of this? Where are we going with this? It's just...
I mean, I don't know. You have to feel for the families of those who have lost their lives. I mean, horrendous. You're out there to go and celebrate something your town is famous for in a region that has had difficulties through the decades. And this thing happens, and it's horrendous. I'm pretty pleased the police have managed to find somebody they suspect of carrying out these murders, and I think that the judicial system there needs to be allowed to go through it. But it is going to bring about a wider debate on migration. Germany has had its problems with open doors migration with Angela Merkel, who famously said everybody's welcome. I think there's going to be some really uncomfortable conversations to be had, and I think they need to be had. I think it's important not to paint every refugee with the same brush, but equally we have to be mindful that in those circumstances you are going to come across people whose beliefs do not align with the country that has willingly taken them in. And that's what I mean about the uncomfortable conversations, that you do have to be kind and welcome people and give them refuge, but equally you can't allow that kind of extremism. And it's obviously somebody who has been groomed by IS, has taken their values as their own, and they shouldn't be allowed to stay in a civilised country like Germany.
I think that's the most important point here, isn't it? I mean, it's the fact that we have to have these uncomfortable conversations now, Nigel, without someone screaming at you that you are racist, for even wondering about the open border policy, the fact that we don't know who is coming into, in this case, Germany, but also the same applies to the UK with illegal migration. And we don't know what these intentions are, but we have to be able to have that conversation without people screaming at you and telling you to shut up because you're racist.
Yeah, I don't think controlling our borders is racist at all. So you're absolutely right. We need to have a proper grown-up conversation about it. How you deal with it is another matter. I mean, the trouble really is that our background in terrorism is things like the IRA. It was an organisation that could be penetrated by MI5. Al-Qaeda and Islamic State are a completely different ballgame. So when they operate, they don't actually have... We don't know anything about this particular individual.
No,
we don't even know if he was a member of Islamic State.
No, and the police are saying, look, we can't rule out terrorism.
They're looking at it. They're looking at the possibility.
ISIS had claimed responsibility,
but looking at previous terrorist attacks, what tends to happen, I mean, both Claire and myself were in one in the House of Commons when we were attacked, and they're lone wolves who are radicalised in bedrooms, things like that. All that happens is that Islamic State is encouraging them, but is not controlling them. So they have no link. So it's very difficult for the security services to find them until they actually strike.
But what do we do about it, Claire? What do we do about it? Well, I mean, you were brave enough on this channel to have this conversation. I noticed the reporting on several other places as well about the other horror that happened in Paris, where a synagogue was attacked. A man attempted to set fire to a synagogue in what Emmanuel Macron has branded a terrorist attack. He had a Palestinian flag tied around his waist. Now, several news outlets have cropped that picture so you can't see the Palestinian flag.
And I think that's the problem, is that you have to be able to talk about it, and you're right. The minute you start talking about immigration, migration, terrorist attacks, and everybody assumes that those attackers are going to be of a certain cultural background, and you get sort of viewpoints in that respect. If you try and defend it by saying, well, hold up a second, let's have a look at the other side of it, then you get told you're a sympathiser or you're a racist or whatever it is. That needs to stop, because you need to understand that some people coming from Syria, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq are going to be bad people, the same way that there will be a lot of good people who desperately need our help. So I think it's not helpful to lump everybody in together, but it's also not helpful to lump every white British person into a label of being far right or racist either. I mean, it just doesn't help the conversation. What we can do about it is extremely difficult. And as Nigel said, the way that IS and people like that operate is to get these people going, and then they just go off and these lone wolf attacks. So it's very, very hard to get any responsibility. What I found quite amazing was the news report that was talking about Islamic State had taken responsibility, and it came from their media wing. And it's just like, how do you have a media operation in a terrorist cell like that? It's something we don't understand. We need to understand it more. I'm sure the security services are all over it in all countries. But it's very difficult to comprehend how a sort of headless entity like IS can radicalise people to this extent. I just don't understand how they're doing that. Is it purely through social media channels? Is it from the dark web? What is it? And I think we need to look at that a little bit more. Perhaps our security needs to come much more on the cyber side than anything else to start with, and then we can see where the information comes from.
Nigel?
No, I agree with that. I think that one of the issues is it is a privacy issue. That what we need to do is look at social media, look at the dark web. These are things that the intelligence services try and do. And of course, when things like Edward Snowden comes up and blows the whistle on such things, that means that the intelligence services go dark until they can start doing it again. Which you give the methods away to the other side. So it is difficult, but all you can do is try and catch them as they come up. But there's no... the other alternative is, could you ever talk to IS and have a proper conversation with them? It doesn't look like it. We were able to solve Northern Ireland by sitting down and talking to terrorists.
Yeah.
It doesn't look quite so easy the other way around.
It's impossible, as you say. It's like talking to a headless entity, or where do you even start? We're running out of time on that one, unfortunately. I'm Dawn Newsom, this is GB News, but plenty more coming up on today's show. But first, it's time for the news headlines with Tatiana.
Dawn, thank you. The top stories this hour. Authorities say the suspect in custody for a stabbing attack in Western Germany, killing 3 people and injuring 8 others, is a 26-year-old Syrian man. German police say the suspect turned himself in and admitted to the crime. The Islamic State terror group claimed responsibility for the attack, which happened in a market square, saying it was carried out by one of its members. And today, a German federal prosecutor has confirmed that to be true. A church service has been taking place today to remember and pay respect to those who lost their lives. International news now, and overnight barrages of missiles were fired from Israel towards Lebanon as the Israeli military confirmed it launched strikes on Hezbollah targets early this morning. The Israeli military says around 100 fighter jets carried out what it described as preemptive strikes across southern Lebanon this morning. The militant group Hezbollah later fired rockets and missiles back into northern Israel. They say it's in response to the killing of one of its top commanders in an Israeli airstrike in Beirut last month. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel would take all measures necessary to defend itself. Today's attack came as Egypt hosts a new round of talks aimed at ending Israel's war against Hamas. Back home, and the Prime Minister's set to warn that things will get worse in the UK before they get better. In a speech on Tuesday, Sir Keir Starmer's likely to say there are no quick fixes to remedy what he'll call the rubble and ruin left by the Conservative Party. He'll also continue to argue that the last government concealed the true state of the public finances. But the Conservatives have accused Labour of fabricating a financial black hole to clear the way for tax rises and have called for the Prime Minister to reverse his Chancellor's cuts to winter fuel payments, arguing these would leave pensioners in the cold. And immigration enforcement officers have detained 75 suspected illegal workers as part of a week-long crackdown. Officers visited more than 225 businesses in the past week, particularly car washes, with over 120 receiving civil penalties for employing illegal workers, according to the Home Office. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper says the government will ensure those who break the rules face the full force of the law. Businesses found to be employing illegal people face fines of up to £45,000 per worker for the first offence and up to £60,000 per worker for repeat offenders. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. Now, we've had some good debates and about some really hard topics in the studio, but we want to know what you think about these. What do you make of what happened in Germany? What do you make of what's happened in Paris with the synagogue? Very simple to get involved in the conversation. Just visit gbnews.com/yoursay and join the conversation. And there's loads more coming up on today's show, including the Metropolitan Police confirming there will be a very significant policing presence at Notting Hill Carnival today and tomorrow. But people are already asking, before any troubles even happened, should the carnival be postponed until things calm down, referring the riots we've seen recently. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far. We'll see you soon.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Through the day today, we see further rain pushing its way eastwards, heavy at times, particularly across the northwest, and quite a cool and breezy day. For all of us, low pressure in charge of our weather at the moment, tightly packed isobars indicating those brisk winds. But into Monday, a bank holiday for some of us, ridge of high pressure trying to move in for a short period of time. But for the rest of the Sunday, you can see outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland, Scotland, Northern England, the yellow colours indicating some heavy bursts, particularly over the higher ground. Cloudier further south across much of England and Wales. Some showers in the west, best of the sunshine towards the southeast there, with highs around 21 Celsius. Cool for many, breezy conditions, the mid-teens at best. That rain continues into the evening time across parts of Scotland. Some heavy bursts possible at times too. Brisk winds too, but starting to ease later on. A cool evening to come here. Temperatures around 13 to 15 Celsius. Some heavy showery rain across Northern Ireland as well. There could be some local disruption here. Rain across Northern England. Brighter skies for the rest of England and Wales, but scattered showers across central and western areas, and still remaining on the cool and breezy side. Overnight into Monday, further showery outbreaks of rain pushing eastwards. So a lot of cloud generally, and winds staying breezy around the coast but easing inland, and temperatures generally for most holding up in double figures, a little warmer compared to recent nights to take us into Monday morning. A mixed start on Monday, some sunny spells, scattered showers across Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales, some in the southeast of England clearing as well, but generally a much drier, brighter day for everyone, and cloud bubbling up through the day, some showers possible, but there'll be more in the way of bright or sunny spells, and that will help lift temperatures a little higher, around the low 20s towards the southeast. See you again later.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have saved Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere. Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi. Hello. Welcome. That was a horrible face to pull, wasn't it? I was arguing with the voices in my head. It happens a lot. Welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Now, today is the first day of the Notting Hill Carnival, the Children's Day, and the Metropolitan Police has confirmed there will be a very significant policing presence. 7,000 officers are due on duty, with around 1 million people expected to take part in the annual celebration of Caribbean culture, marking one of Europe's biggest street parties. Now, we were just chatting about it, and Nigel Nelson, one of my panellists, has got a story about and it's not the story about the time you were in the sequins and the feathers.
No, it's
because that one's, frankly, Nigel, that one's just embarrassing.
That is
okay?
for a different time.
Right, OK, that's after the watershed.
I mean, but first of all, I think that the police are absolutely right to be standing by. Let's hope the whole thing goes off peacefully and everyone has a fantastic time. But it wasn't always like that, which is why the police are as they are. I mean, I used to, as a reporter, cover the Notting Hill Carnival when there were riots there. So on the kind of things you were facing on year one, the police had no kind of protection. I was hiding with the police under dustbin lids as bricks came over and we were trying to ward them off. This would have been in the 70s when there were a lot of riots. The following year, the police dressed up in their full riot gear. I found I was safer on the rioters' side because the police were then doing their kind of Zulu charges where they bang the shield, and if you stood in front of them, you just got impaled over the shields. But the whole thing is that it's got more peaceful over the years, and when it comes down to how the police do it, they should actually dance with the carnival goers. They should blend in as much as possible, and the moment there is trouble, then they step in. I mean, the last 2 years there have been 15 stabbings. Obviously, in situations like that, the police have to act. But in the meantime, try and keep it as low-key as possible, so hoping for the best and preparing for the worst.
No, I've got friends that go down there, they work down there every year. I've also got a friend that lives in the area and just boards up her house and leaves, to be honest with you, because otherwise she gets people weeing in her garden and everything. It just sounds horrific. But a lot of people on here are saying, I want the police to be police. I don't want them dancing with people at the carnival. I want them nicking people for carrying knives, smoking drugs, etc., etc.
Yeah, and I agree. I think you need to keep policing low-key at an event like that. Doesn't mean you need to be joining in the dancing and look, to having selfies with people. I want my police officers to be alert to what's going on around them, not being distracted.
Can't they?
Well, I don't think it's the best look. If you're there to enforce the law, I think that it's a bit much to then start going and dancing in the street and going onto social media and having your clip up there to go viral. I mean, you be friendly to people, as most police officers are. They, especially to children who are there today, they are normally very friendly, but ultimately they are there to uphold the law, and that's what I want them to be doing. I don't think they need to be taking part in activities when they're there to do a job.
Yeah, I mean we're not having a sort of police dancing troupe sort of going through, parading through Notting Hill. What you're talking about is the police engaging with the revellers, and I think that where there is no trouble and where the police can do that, I think that is actually part of good policing.
But don't you think that does take their attention away from what they're doing? Now, there's nothing wrong with being polite, friendly, as police officers are, but you don't need to sort of join in to that extent, because you do sort of wonder if you're a criminal.
You obviously don't forget your duty. I mean, obviously your duty, as you say, is absolutely right. Your duty there is as a police officer and to maintain law and order if it gets out of hand.
But would you see the same kind of reaction to football fans going to a match?
I was just going to bring that up. Mike Neville, a retired Scotland Yard detective, says, like, if you want to see two-tier policing in operation, go to the Notting Hill Carnival. He says you see people openly smoking drugs, abuse of police officers, dancing with female officers to the point of sexual assault. I challenge anyone to do the same thing on the way to a Millwall football ground and not be arrested. I mean, he does have a point there, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know there's a lot of dancing at Millwall football ground, is there? But maybe there is.
I'm a West Ham fan. I don't go anywhere near Millwall.
It's not something I know about. I mean, if people are smoking drugs in the street, do you want to cause trouble by arresting those people?
Well, that's what he's saying.
Yeah, but is it... when you police something, you do it proportionately and you do it based on the event that it's in front of you. So every event you police, you'll police slightly differently. What you don't want to do is go in really hard and cause a riot or cause disruption. You police it in the best way possible. And the one thing you've got to do is just ensure public safety. And if rioting starts, you can't do that.
But if you were a football fan and walking into a match and you were openly smoking drugs in the street, carrying a Union Jack flag, they'd have you on the floor and in the back of a police van as quick as you like.
Well, would they?
Yeah, I think they actually would. I think there is a lot more attention paid to things like that than there is at the Notting Hill Carnival. It does seem a lot of behaviour does get sort of slipped through the net, and I don't think that's fair to the population as a whole, who are there just to have a nice time and not break the law.
Right, I just hope everybody does have a lovely time and enjoys themselves and there isn't any trouble. Meanwhile, I just want to read out one comment. I'm going to get to lots more of them. This is from Christine. Hi, Christine. She says, Claire is a very intelligent lady and speaks very well.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Hello, hello.
Less said about him, the better, probably. Thank you very much. Keep those messages coming in. gbnews.com/your say. Now, I'm Dawn Neeson to GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show. Yeah, TV presenter Kirsty Allsop, not a big fan normally, but she is outraged after she was quizzed by social services for allowing her 15-year-old son to go into rallying across Europe. Are people just overreacting? All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, a Britain's news channel. Don't get too far.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Fatima's UK campaign, Children and Young People Matter. Because I actually run a campaign, and my ministry today is about looking after children in the care system and improving their life outcomes. You know, for me, I had a difficult start to my childhood, and I will never forget it. I mean, I always say I may have left the care system, but the care system hasn't left me. And I instantly understand the importance of giving our young children and young people the opportunity to also, you know, have good life outcomes. So Fatima's UK campaign is all about that. And it's a summit next year. Eamon, I hope you're going to come.
No, I know we've talked about this before, and certainly, I mean, I believe in what you're doing. I think it's marvellous what you're doing, and that's why, you know, when you think about children, and children are so close to you, and you look at that horror that happened in Southport yesterday, I mean, things like that
exactly.
will really hit home hard.
Well, children are the innocent ones, aren't they, Eamon? And this is what we look at when you think they're the future. We've got to start to put them back at the top. And it's a travesty when we see things like that, you know, Omar, that happen. You know, children are the ones that are impacted. And, you know, it's, for me, you know, really important to be able to do the best we can and looking after their future. And so hopefully, you know, I'm going to the Pyrenees in September, Eamon. That's my next challenge, the Bay of Biscay from France to Spain and back. And hopefully people can go online, fatimascampaign.com, and give generously to help make a difference to these young people's lives. Because, as I say, children are the future.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Claire and Nigel are still with lots of love in the room for Claire here. Nigel, unfortunately, we're just having a debate about the Notting Hill Carnival, and Nigel has no problem with police officers dancing with carnival goers. And Alex, afternoon Alex, says 1 minute you're dancing away and then you have to switch off and chase down a knife attacker. Nigel is the worst kind of delusional lefty.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, and you typed that so fast.
I know.
I didn't even see you type that bit. Well, this is the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Now, we're talking about Kirsty Allsopp. I know, not something we'd normally do. However, it's an interesting story. She is outraged after she was quizzed by social services for allowing her 15-year-old son to go interrailing across Europe. The social worker wanted to know what safeguards were put in place when Kirsty allowed her teenager to travel away for 3 weeks. With a 16-year-old, by the way, wasn't on his own. Kirsty called the questioning Orwellian and absolutely outrageous. Now, I'm talking to someone who is the proud owner of a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Owner. He's about 6'5", isn't
yes.
he? Or like
yeah,
there.
yeah, no, he's very tall.
What do you make of this story?
I mean, it's ridiculous. When I first saw Kirsty Allsopp's message on social media, I thought, well, that's nice. So, you know, her son had gone, he'd had a lovely time.
She put out on social media, very proud that
very proud he'd come
back.
back and he was a bit sort of dirty, tired, smelly, as teenagers would be. And I just thought, oh, that's really good. That's not a bad idea, because the very nearly 16-year-old in our household is also looking towards next year and what holiday he can go on without us. Because I think that isn't that just a natural part of growing up? And it does depend on the teenager. So Kirsty's son, I believe, was very nearly 16.
Yeah, it was literally the week before.
The week before.
He got back.
And he went with a 16-year-old, which is what you need to be able to check into a hostel and all that kind of stuff. But she knows her own child. She knows that he's sensible. And for somebody to then report her to social services, I think, is completely misusing social services, for a start. But also, isn't it up to her as the parent of said teenager to make the decision as to whether he is capable enough to be able to do that, whether he will cope? And I'm sure that if there was any problem, she would have been out there to help him.
As Kirsty points out herself, it is like you've got, you know, phones these days.
Yeah.
It's much safer travelling. So who knows children better? I mean, the state or the parent knows.
No, I agree with every word Claire said. Unusually.
Steady on. and social services don't always cover themselves in glory when children really are in danger.
No, that's right. And I think on a situation like this, that they're responding to presumably a complaint because Kirsty put it out there, what had happened. But no, I mean, it seems to be a waste of their time. That certainly when I was 15, I was able to go on holiday with mates. The difference was we weren't on the end of a mobile phone. So if anything that was more risky back in those days, in this situation, he's with somebody, a 16-year-old, he's got a mobile phone where he could be contacted constantly. Kirsty Allsopp could have laid down rules about phone me every night or whenever, something like that. But again, as Claire says, she knows her son, she knows whether he's mature enough to do this and whether he's responsible, and if he is, good luck to him and I hope he had a great time.
And it's going to be more educational, isn't it, Claire? Travelling and sort of like learning.
Of course it is.
He's interrailing across Europe. He wasn't going to Afghanistan, for example.
Exactly, and I think you have to be able to learn at some point how to deal with adverse situations. So if the train had been cancelled, went to a different location, you then have to find your route back and you have to make sure you've got your tickets, you don't lose them, that's your fault. But that builds up resilience in people, so that's actually going to be a much more beneficial thing for him to have done. You know, going on to study and go on to university or college or whatever it is, even into the workplace, to actually just be able to deal with something that doesn't go right the first time.
Maybe the morals of this story is be careful what you put on social media.
As always.
Typical.
Unfortunately, we have to go now because it's a bank holiday and the important thing is what's your weather going to be like. So here's Greg with all the details for you. Good luck.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Showery rain starting to clear as we head into Monday, a little drier and brighter and warmer. For many of us, with the winds falling a little lighter, low pressure starting to move away, a brief ridging of high pressure moving in for Monday, which is a bank holiday for some of us, ahead of further wet and windy weather moving in to the northwest later on in the day. For the end of Sunday and overnight, we can see showery rain still affecting parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England. Elsewhere, clear spells and scattered showers. The breeze still fairly brisk around the coasts, and that will keep temperatures up. Temperatures for most of us 13 to 15 Celsius. So a warmer start to Monday compared to what we've seen over the weekend. This weather front will continue to give showery rain across southern Scotland, northern England. Across the rest of Scotland, generally brighter with a few scattered showers, winds lighter Monday morning. Northern Ireland also seeing some sunny spells, a few showers around. Temperatures across northern England around 14 or 15 Celsius under the cloud. Variable cloud across parts of Wales, a few showers possible, whilst much of the rest of England generally dry, though some showers across southeast England clearing through Monday morning. And then through the day, as that ridge of high pressure builds in, it largely stays dry and bright. There'll be some sunny spells, but quite a bit of cloud around for most of us. Showers across northern parts of the Midlands, northern England into southern Scotland, but most places staying dry. And with lighter winds, just feeling a bit warmer. Temperatures high teens to low 20s, highs around 23 Celsius towards the London area, so just a little improvement for some. Then into the evening time, further wet and windy weather starts to move back in across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. Over the next few days, it stays wet and windy across the northwest, but temperatures start to rise in the sunshine, particularly by midweek towards the southeast, highs around 28 Celsius.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Thank you very much, Greg. Well, it's not looking too bad, is it? Now, there's loads more coming up on today's show. Sir Keir Starmer will warn life in the UK is going to get worse before it improves. I don't remember that in the manifesto. I'm not sure about you. All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you soon.
It's the final week to see how you could win an incredible £30,000 in cash. And you could be getting that winning call from us to tell you that you're our next Great British Giveaway winner.
I can't believe this.
Oh my God, this is amazing.
That is absolutely fantastic.
We're over the moon.
I've never won anything like this in my life.
Oh, you shocked me. I never won a penny in my life.
If I was there, I'd buy you a drink.
Get your entry in now for another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash. Text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on.
GB News, Britain's news channel. I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday, the 25th of August. Hope you're having a wonderful bank holiday weekend. This is indeed the weekend on GB News. Now, Sir Keir Starmer will warn life in the UK is going to get worse before it improves in his first major speech as Prime Minister. But is this just more Tory scapegoating? You know, it's their fault, blame them. Then, overnight, barrages of missiles were fired from Israel towards Lebanon as the Israeli military confirmed it launched strikes on Hezbollah targets early this morning. We'll bring you the latest on that story as well. And King Charles is open to a truce with Harry after receiving advice from spiritual leaders and has taken spiritual nourishment. Sounds intriguing, doesn't it? All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is indeed The Weekend. But this show is nothing without you and your views, and I mean that I love talking to you, so please do keep your messages coming in, and I promise I'm going to read as many out as possible, but they're coming in so thick and fast at the moment. And particularly want to hear your views if you want to say how marvellous my panellist Claire is, and not so marvellous a husband Nigel is. They are married, so they can have this debate with each other. Now, it's very simple to do so. Just get involved by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay and join in our conversation. As I said, Claire and Nigel are going to be with me for the next hour, and they are, they're still talking to one another, so I think we're OK on this one. But before we get stuck into their next marital dispute, here is the news with, it's not Tatiana Sanchez, it is Sam. I spotted the difference.
Dawn, thank you very much. Yes, it is indeed not Tatiana Sanchez. I'm Sam Francis in the GB newsroom. The top story this hour. Authorities in Germany say the suspect in custody for a stabbing attack in the west of the country that killed 3 people and injured 8 is a 26-year-old Syrian man. Police there say the suspect turned himself in and admitted to the crime. The Islamic State terror group has claimed responsibility for the attack, which happened in a market square, saying it was carried out by one of its members. And today, a German federal prosecutor has confirmed that that is the case. A church service has been taking place today to remember and to pay respects to those who lost their lives in that attack. Overnight, a barrage of missiles were fired from Israel towards Lebanon as the Israeli military confirmed it has launched strikes on Hezbollah targets early this morning. The Israeli military says around 100 fighter jets carried out what it described as preemptive strikes across southern Lebanon this morning. The militant group Hezbollah later fired rockets and missiles back in response into northern Israel. They say it's in response to the killing of one of its top commanders in an Israeli airstrike in Beirut last month. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel would take all measures necessary to defend itself. Today's attack comes as Egypt hosts a new round of talks aimed at ending Israel's war against Hamas. Here, the Prime Minister is set to warn that things will get worse in the UK before they get better. In a speech on Tuesday this week, Sir Keir Starmer is expected to say there are no quick fixes to remedy what he'll call the rubble and ruin left by the Conservatives. He'll also continue to argue that the government has concealed the true state of the public finances. But the Conservatives have accused Labour of fabricating a financial black hole to clear the way for tax rises. And they're calling for the Prime Minister to reverse the Chancellor's cuts to winter fuel payments, arguing they would leave pensioners in the cold. Immigration enforcement officers have detained 75 suspected illegal workers as part of a week-long crackdown. Officers visited more than 225 businesses in the past week. particularly car washes, with over 120 receiving civil penalties for employing illegal workers. That's according to the Home Office. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says the government will ensure that those who break the rules face the full force of the law. Businesses found to be employing people illegally face fines of up to £45,000. That's per worker for the first offence, and then £60,000 per worker for any repeat offenders. His Majesty the King has appointed a composer of the London 2012 Paralympic Games as Master of the King's Music. Erilyn Warren, CBE, was also commissioned to compose pieces marking the Golden and the Diamond Jubilees for the late Queen Elizabeth II. The Belize-born 66-year-old was the first woman to receive an Ivor Novello Award for classical music, and also the first black woman to have a work featured in the Proms. The Master of the King's Music is an appointment made by the Sovereign and granted to a musician of distinction who's added to the musical life of the UK and also the Commonwealth. Well, in other news, the billionaire founder of the encrypted messaging app Telegram has been arrested in France today, according to reports there. Pavel Durov was detained after his private jet landed at an airport in North Paris. According to officials, the 39-year-old was arrested under a warrant for offences related to that popular messaging app. Russia's embassy in France says it's taking immediate steps to clarify the situation. That's according to Russia's TASS state news agency, yet unconfirmed, though. Telegram, meanwhile, is particularly popular in Russia, Ukraine and former Soviet Union states. And officials have confirmed there will be very significant policing presence at Notting Hill Carnival today. Around 1 million people expected to take part in the annual celebration of Caribbean culture, marking one of Europe's largest street parties. 7,000 officers are due to be on duty, weeks after the recent riots and violent disorder that erupted on streets across the UK. Well, the Notting Hill Carnival began in the 1960s as a way to unite London's diverse immigrant communities. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much. Definitely Sam Francis, definitely. No, definitely Sam Francis. Let's get straight into today's stories first. Actually, while we're talking about Sam Francis, which we were, and the Notting Hill Carnival story Sam was just talking about, just want to read one of your messages. A lot of you have been saying similar things. This is from Owen. Owen says, the difference of treatment between going to a football event and the Notting Hill Carnival goers is the people at the carnival mostly tend to be middle, upper-class socialists and foreigners, while the football fans are mainly working class. The state has little regard for the average working class, especially if they are white and male. A lot of you echoing those sentiments as well, by the way. So, but keep your messages coming in. Very easy. gbnews.com/your-say. Now, Sir Keir Starmer will warn life in the UK is going to get worse before it improves. In his first major speech as Prime Minister, Sir Keir will mark a week before Parliament returns after a shortened summer recess by continuing his attacks on the previous government, who saw that one coming, saying things are worse than we ever imagined. Now, I don't actually remember that being in the manifesto. You know, things can only get better was Tony Blair's motto. Things can only get worse, a lot worse. Keir Starmer, that definitely wasn't in the manifesto, Nigel, was it?
They did mention it during the election campaign. You're right, I don't think...
Well, all I heard was we're going for growth, we understand what you're going through.
I mean, I have to say it was probably a bit in the small print.
Yeah.
But I mean, certainly in speeches that were made, Keir Starmer did make it clear that it was going to take time to do various things. So things like Great British Energy that he's setting up, that's off and running, but it'll take about 5 years before we'll see a reduction in our bills. It's going to take several years to start a proper house building programme, but the idea is 1.5 million homes by the end of this Parliament.
They needed to start building several hundred a day already. Not doing that, are they?
Well, I mean, they've got to start as soon as possible, obviously. So, I mean, things are moving, but yes, I think that we did know that things weren't going to be great to begin with, and it will take time to turn things around.
OK, well, I would be reassured if I believed that things really were as bad as they say, but I'm not entirely convinced that they can't make things better. And they hit the ground running when it came to taking our winter fuel allowance away from pensioners.
Well, this is it. I mean, it depends which article you're reading and what day of the week it is for most Labour ministers as to whether it's 19, 20 or 22 billion pound black hole. And I mean, it depends. You know, they sort of muddy those figures around quite a lot. And it does seem that they're trying to now balance the books by freezing granny at Christmas, taking away the winter fuel allowance. I mean, yes, things aren't great. I think most people would understand that. His speech does seem to be very much, this is all going to be awful people and it's all their fault, them over there being the Conservatives. But I'm going to make it better very slowly and painfully for you. That kind of seems to be the big message that he's sending out. And if I was still advising a politician, I would say that you need to have a little bit of hope in a message like that. Yes, tell people honestly that things are bad and painful, but also then, if you want an aspirational society, say, look, we are making changes, and a change was their big manifesto commitment. Have some positivity so that people have something to look forward to. People can see that you're working towards something and it's a short-term pain.
But that's what his speech says.
No,
that's
it
exactly
doesn't.
what his speech
no,
says.
It doesn't.
That expect some short-term pain along the way, and clearly that is actually making way for some tax rises in the October
Inevitable
30th
tax
budget.
rises.
Well, yes,
Come on. I mean, it's just the way of every Labour government. What are you going to do? Tax somebody?
Well, we knew there were tax rises coming because Rachel Reeves said so. So obviously a speech like this is paving the way for that. And yes, you're right, but it will get worse to begin with. People will get pretty fed up, especially anyone who's being taxed, who will always squeal about extra taxes. And the question then is what he is saying, and we'll have to see, but what he is saying is that things will get better over a period of time once we've gone through this bad patch.
So is this just... we just admire his remarkable honesty, Claire?
No. No. Right, OK, one, I don't trust the figures that they're basing it on in the first place. Two, they're looking to go after the most vulnerable people, pensioners, to take away their winter fuel allowance. And three, they are spending a lot of money. If you look at Great British Energy, which you seem to be a real fan of, you look at that's a sort of mechanism for getting finance. But you've also got the Energy Secretary sending a lot of money to the third world countries in order for them to have better power. Well, hang on a second. If you've got all that money sloshing around, why not use it for your own country and use it for your own pensioners and people that are really struggling with fuel poverty, rather than giving it to other countries so that they might have some clean energy? I just don't see the priorities lining up.
You're talking about the basis of international aid.
No, it's different, though. This is different. This is a specific scheme, taking money from the budget of the Energy Department, whatever we're going to call it these days. It's changed names that many times. You're taking that money, which could be used in order to shore up our own energy security in the UK so that we aren't reliant upon foreign imports of gas, and you're giving it away to other countries. Now, I don't disagree with foreign aid in targeted ways, but this seems a lot of money for other people to get energy.
And how much is it?
It is billions of pounds. This is the 28 billion. I mean, it's an enormous number that Ed Miliband is giving away overseas to third world countries for their energy requirements and net zero requirements, where you could be spending that on people in your own country.
Yeah, I'm unaware that they're giving away such huge amounts of money, so I'll leave that one with you. But when it comes to Great British Energy, you've got to get that started fairly quickly and start delivering energy through renewable sources, and that will eventually bring bills down.
But do you not think the rush to net zero is the very fact that it's going to make people poorer and colder? Why should we be going after such an outrageous target when, some renewables
but
will
2050 net zero is an outrageous target. I mean, that was agreed internationally.
But it's all
back in
of
Paris.
the costs are going to come back to the individuals in the country, aren't they? And I just
it comes
think
with a cost, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, but
no one wants the extra cost on top of it.
We have to build the wind farms, we have to build the solar farms to be able to deliver that renewable energy. And if we do it with Great British Energy and we keep to the targets already set, so electric will be net zero by 2030. Even the RAF says it can be net zero by 2040 by using things like cooking oil to fly typhoons around the place. So all this can be done, but there has to be the will there. And everyone's saying, it's going to cost us money, we don't want net zero, we can't reach the target. It's actually a bit defeatist before we've even tried.
I think some of the messages on here, a lot of them are saying, the winter fuel payment issue is a big thing. Yeah. I completely appreciate that. And they did that, Rachel Reeves did that within a week of being in, I think. A lot of people are saying, well, on the one hand, you've got money to hand out inflation-busting pay rises to public sector workers. Someone's got to pay for all this stuff, and it does seem to be targeting the one group of people that won't go on strike and don't fund the Labour Party, i.e. the pensioners.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem, is that you can hand out inflation-busting pay rises to parts of the public sector, and there'll be more coming along. It won't stop at train drivers. There'll be
recommended by pay review bodies. What is the point of having an independent pay review body, which then you actually ignore? So when it comes to teachers and nurses, the pay bodies came up with 5.5% as a reasonable wage increase. The government has accepted that in full. That seems to be right. If you've got a pay review body making the recommendation.
There wasn't a pay review body for the train drive.
No, it wasn't. That was a negotiation with ASNEP. Over 3 years.
Which is an enormous amount, isn't it? When you're talking about taking £200 or £300 off of some pensioners. No, I'm sorry. There'll be the next argument that comes up with the next group of individuals, because the unions are always going to say, well, let's just try, because Labour are bound to give in, which they have. They've rolled over tremendously quickly on this.
That's kind of always a sort of Tory argument. Of course, the unions will actually win every time. I don't think that's...
But it's happened, hasn't it?
It didn't happen under the last Labour government, and I appreciate that was some time ago. I'm with you. I'm uncomfortable about the winter fuel allowance being taken away. And what I would have rather seen is that we look at the way that money is divvied up to older people, and if you could put all that into raise the pensions and make it taxable, it means those on lower incomes would be protected. So I do take that point.
But it just seems that we have money to burn when it comes to public sector, and anybody that's in a union that potentially then supports the Labour Party. It just seems that there's enough money for that, but the rest of us are being told that there isn't. What about this black hole?
Why
have we got this money?
The whole point of the Labour Party is for working people, what used to be called the urban working class. So it doesn't seem to be surprising to me that one of their first acts when they come into government is to make sure that people have decent wages, having fallen behind in pay over the last 14 years.
But this whole point about working class, you try and get the definition of what is working class.
What is working people?
We call
working
it now.
People. Well, I'm a working person, and I'm going to be much worse off. So nice Keir Starmer is doing absolutely nothing for me, and neither is Rachel Reeves. So it isn't really helping working people. They're going to tax me more.
It'll help that particular working person.
No, exactly. Well, there you go. And I'm sure there are lots of people out there who are also going to suffer.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're both here and you're both working very hard. And Frankie, afternoon, Frankie says, go Claire, put your man straight. Now, for all the even better analysis than these two and opinion on that story and more, please do go to our website, which is gbnews.com. Now, we do have some good news on the show for you. It's how you can win a load of money, basically. It's the Great British Giveaway, and your chance to win £30,000 in cash. But you do have to hurry, because lines are closing this Friday at 5 o'clock. Here's all you need to know to win that money. Could be yours this summer. Go for it.
It's the final week to see how you could win an incredible £30,000 in cash. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. Time is ticking. Get your entry in now. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck. You could escape just as the autumn hits, which is due, I think, at the end of the week. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. There's lots more coming up on today's show. Now, it's all happening again, isn't it? Overnight barrages of missiles were fired from Israel towards Lebanon as the Israeli military confirmed it had launched strikes on Hezbollah targets early this morning. We're bringing you the latest on that breaking story. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you soon.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Recently, the cartoons that inspired the Bond films have been gifted to the Oscars archive. I'm joined now by John's son, Sean McCluskey. Very good to see you. Welcome to GB News.
Thanks for having me.
Do you have any memory of your dad doing these strip cartoons?
Well, many memories, yeah. We grew up with my father working at a pace. He had to turn in one strip every day, apart from Sundays. So he was always working at the house, and always taking reference material. He had models dropping in to shoot them with his camera. You'd go out in the garden and there'd be a guy with a machine gun and he'd be taking photos of him, things like that. Nice memories.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
What would you say about the way he characterised James Bond?
Fleming was very wary that his highbrow art was going to be somehow diminished by turning it into a strip cartoon in a newspaper, but he met with Fleming, and Fleming had a drawing made of what he wanted Bond to look like, and it was very old-fashioned, very sort of military. And my father kind of, jostled a little bit and came through with a much younger, much more lithe character. And through the first few strips, he moved Bond into a contemporary man, very much part of the 60s, and styled him in that way. And I think there's a lot of rumour that Sean Connery got the gig because he looked a lot like the drawings, because it's hard to believe now, but the strip was billboard advertised across the country.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained. I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back. Overnight barrages of missiles were fired from Israel towards Lebanon as the Israeli military confirmed it launched strikes on Hezbollah targets early this morning. Israel's confirmed that it's struck more Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon in the last hour or so. This story is developing on an hourly basis. Israel called them preemptive strikes after officials detected evidence of a large-scale attack planned by Iranian-backed Hezbollah militants. Hezbollah have confirmed it started phase one of an attack on Israel this morning, beginning by firing a wave of hundreds of rockets and drones towards Israel. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel would take all measures necessary to defend itself after Hezbollah launched the airstrike on Israel in retaliation for the killing of a senior commander. I know, it makes your head hurt, doesn't it? Today's attack came as Egypt hosts a new round of talks aimed at ending Israel's war against Hamas now in its 11th month. Thankfully, we have an expert to explain what is actually going on. So it's a breaking story. It's happening. It's changing by the hour. So a defence analyst, Chris Newton, is going to explain what's going on. Chris, thank you very much for joining us. We have a lull in this, and then suddenly it all seems to kick off again overnight. Can you bring us up to date on what's happening today, literally changing on an hourly basis?
Yes, good afternoon. So, as you said, what essentially has happened is that Israel has launched strikes into Lebanon, attacking Hezbollah-related targets, and this involved over 100 Israeli jets. And effectively, what the Israelis are trying to do, or were trying to do, is to strike Hezbollah rocket launchers whilst they're in the process of being launched. So they were trying this morning to prevent the Hezbollah rockets from being launched. Now, it looked as if the strikes this morning were successful. We have to see about that. There doesn't appear to be much footage of much damage into Israel. But we have to wait and see to see if any more developments are related to that. But as you said, it's another round of escalation. It's actually a continuation of what has gone on since since late July, which began with the Hezbollah attack on the rocket attack on the soccer pitch, the football pitch, which led to 12 children being killed. And then Israel retaliated with a strike against and killing one of the key Hezbollah commanders. So yes, it is also worth saying that there's Hezbollah attacks taking place every day, or pretty much every day, and Israel also pretty much every day strikes Hezbollah targets in Lebanon as well, targeting commanders, weapons storage facilities, command centres, and so forth. So there's always continuous activity, but today I think represents a worrying development and escalation.
Yeah, indeed. And both sides have said this is basically stage one. I mean, Netanyahu saying Sunday strikes were not the final word. Meanwhile, Hezbollah are saying this is phase one. I mean, so it doesn't look like it's going to calm down anytime soon.
No, I mean, we don't know exactly what Hezbollah means by this phase one expression. Is it psychological? Maybe. The one thing to be especially concerned about with this phase one phrase, what they use, is of course Iran has also threatened direct retaliation against an Israeli strike on a key Hamas figure. And is this, when Hezbollah says this is phase one, is it a phase one of a wider axis of resistance attack, which might involve direct Iranian strikes against Israel? We just don't know. But yes, it's concerning, and we will have to see in the coming days what this exactly means, whether it's a real threat or whether it's just psychological and just something to get Israeli civilians increasingly worried about as well.
Thank you very much. That's defence analyst Chris Newton there. Thank you very much for bringing us up. As I say, it's a breaking story. It's changing on an hourly basis here. So if there is any further developments, we will bring you up to speed with them. Claire and Nigel are both still with me. Claire, what do you make of what we're seeing again overnight? You just think, as I said, it lulls down a bit, but then suddenly...
And I think that's the problem, isn't it? Is the whole area is like a tinderbox, and it only takes sort of one false move from either side, and it's going to kick off. This does seem to be escalating at a worrying pace, though. I don't want to know what's going to happen in the next 24 hours. It could end up being particularly nasty.
Or, fingers crossed, it actually stops. I mean, Iran made an attack some time ago, and it was only a one-off. Lebanon and Israel don't want to go to war.
No.
So there is a possibility, as Chris was saying, in fact, that this could be a one-off tit-for-tat attack. Obviously, Iran is also talking about another attack because a Hamas leader was killed in Tehran.
Yes, of course, that's what...
So, well, you know, we have to see that just because they can attack, we all hope that they just don't, because it just makes
it could be
worse.
saber rattling. We've seen that before. We're going to do A, B, and C, and it's like, and thankfully they both pull back from that precipice. But interestingly, this morning, a UK cabinet minister, Pat McFadden, said he is very concerned, or the government is very concerned, and warns that major war in the Middle East is a real danger.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know that. And I think what we need to be mindful of are all of the sort of rebel groups that also get in on the act. They start to fire rockets and missiles across the place and look to point the blame at everybody else. So I think that it's a really complicated region. It is incredibly difficult for us sitting here in London for the safety of the United Kingdom. I mean, it's a dangerous area. It is complicated, and Egypt holding talks, I think, is a very good thing. You need that kind of state to be on side. But it's never going to be easy. It's not going to stop for a long time, I don't think. I think we're going to see periods of quiet, but then it just takes one small spark and it sets it all off again.
Interestingly, Nigel, just quickly, Israeli spokesman has just said, you know, the usual terminology that Iran and Hezbollah are an axis of evil. But they had a bit of a news blackout on this situation this morning, Israel. They're just giving a press conference now, but they did have a news blackout.
Yeah, I think that was a tactical thing.
Yes.
I mean, what the Israelis were able to do was to hit the Hezbollah rocket sites 13 minutes before Hezbollah started firing the rockets. So I think that while that was going on operationally, they would have a news blackout. And I'm just picking up on what Claire says. I think that the world is a really dangerous place at the moment. We've got a serious war in Ukraine going on, which tends to get forgotten. And it's absolutely right. The Middle East could explode at any moment. And you're just hoping that everyone's sensible enough to keep a lid on that.
Yeah, it's indeed a worrying thing. I just hope we spend enough money on defence in this country, Nigel.
We will have to see.
OK, I'm Dawn Neeson and this is GB News, and there's plenty more coming up on today's show. But first, it is the news headlines. She says, checking, yes, with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. Just after 2:30, and the top story this afternoon. The suspect in the Western Germany knife attack is due before a judge this afternoon. Police say the 26-year-old Syrian, who's accused of killing 3 people and injuring 8 others at a cultural festival yesterday, had applied for asylum in the country. A church service has been taking place today to remember and to pay respects to those who lost their lives in that attack. 4 of those wounded are still in a life-threatening condition. Officials from Hezbollah are insisting the militant group isn't looking for a full-scale war after a rocket and drone attack against Israel this morning. It was in retaliation for the killing of a top commander last month. Israel launched preemptive strikes on southern Lebanon in what it called an act of self-defence. Here, the Prime Minister is to warn things in Britain will get worse before they get better. Sir Keir Starmer will use a speech on Tuesday to claim promises made by Labour will take time because of what he's calling an economic black hole left by the Conservatives. Immigration enforcement officers have detained 75 suspected illegal workers as part of a week-long crackdown. They visited more than 225 businesses, particularly car washes, with 122 receiving civil penalties. The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, says that those who break any rules will, she says, face the full force of the law. We've heard today that a Royal Navy warship has conducted a major drugs bust in the Caribbean. Cocaine with a street value of more than £40 million has been seized, and 3 alleged smugglers have been handed over to US authorities for prosecution. It's the 6th drug bust made by HMS Trent in 2024. So far this year, it's seized close to 7 tonnes of drugs worth more than £500 million for traffickers. And a plume of sulphur dioxide is crossing the UK, spreading from a volcano in Iceland. The Met Office says it should clear, though, to the southeast in the coming hours. And because it's high up in the atmosphere, they say it shouldn't affect air quality too much. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you at 3 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Sam. There's plenty more coming up on today's show. But before I tell you what we've got in store for you, it's the lovely Darren Grimes on later at 3 o'clock, and he joins us now. Darren, what's coming up in your show?
Well, Dawn, how do we follow you? That's the real question. But look, we're going to be discussing the fact that Labour, in its de facto granting of amnesty to illegal migrants, what that actually means for the welfare bill and what it'll mean for British taxpayers. There's a report out by the Conservative MP, Nick Timothy, who has argued that actually the billions of pounds extra to the Treasury may well be covered up. We're going to be exploring all of those themes and hearing what Labour has had to say about those accusations. So one to watch, definitely, because it's an issue that really gets the goat, frankly, of GB News viewers.
It really does. That's coming up at 3 o'clock with Darren Grimes. You don't want to go too far. That's going to be a cracker, isn't it? Thank you very much, Darren. And at 3 o'clock, don't go too far. Now, remember, it's very easy to get involved with me, with Darren. Let us know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today or anything you want to have a chat about. Very simple. Just visit gbnews.com/yoursay and join in the conversation. Now, there's loads more coming up on today's show. Motorhomes, yes, the bane of my dad's life they used to be. Well, we used to call them caravans back then. Will they be banned from parking in tourist beauty hotspots? All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson, and it is a bank holiday. Hope you're having a wonderful time. GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you soon. Don't go too far. Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Through the day today, we see further rain pushing its way eastwards, heavy at times, particularly across the northwest, and quite a cool and breezy day. For all of us, low pressure in charge of our weather at the moment, tightly packed isobars indicating those brisk winds. But into Monday, a bank holiday for some of us, ridge of high pressure trying to move in for a short period of time. But for the rest of the Sunday, you can see outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland, Scotland, Northern England, the yellow colours indicating some heavy bursts, particularly over the higher ground. Cloudier further south across much of England and Wales. Some showers in the west, best of the sunshine towards the southeast there, with highs around 21 Celsius. Cool for many, breezy conditions, the mid-teens at best. That rain continues into the evening time across parts of Scotland. Some heavy bursts possible at times too. Brisk winds too, but starting to ease later on. A cool evening to come here. Temperatures around 13 to 15 Celsius. Some heavy showery rain across Northern Ireland as well. There could be some local disruption here. Rain across Northern England. Brighter skies for the rest of England and Wales, but scattered showers across central and western areas, and still remaining on the cool and breezy side. Overnight into Monday, further showery outbreaks of rain pushing eastwards. So a lot of cloud generally, and winds staying breezy around the coast but easing inland, and temperatures generally for most holding up in double figures, a little warmer compared to recent nights to take us into Monday morning. A mixed start on Monday, some sunny spells, scattered showers across Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales, some in the southeast of England clearing as well, but generally a much drier, brighter day for everyone, and cloud bubbling up through the day, some showers possible, but there'll be more in the way of bright or sunny spells, and that will help lift temperatures a little higher, around the low 20s towards the southeast. See you again later.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Now, lots of you have been sending in your thoughts, and some of them I can even read out. I'm not sure about this one, though. Andy, hi, Andy. I would like a cuddly Nigel teddy bear. I'm not sure what's going on there.
I'll try and get a bear costume for my next appearance.
Oh, that's even more concerning. No.
Make him stop. Please make him stop. Meanwhile, Susie, good afternoon, Susie, hope you have a lovely weekend, says, I can't get my head round Nigel and Claire. Unless they're having a laugh at the populist, how do they get on with each other unless no politics talk at home? Very strange. In any case, he's punching way above his weight.
Well, certainly right there.
Just, but please, no teddy bear outfits. Please, Nigel, no, I don't think I can go. But please do keep your messages coming in at gbnews.com/your say. Now, it's the bank holiday weekend and thousands will be flocking to the seaside to enjoy the three-day break. But from next month, motorhomes in North Yorkshire are banned from parking overnight in certain beauty spots along the coast. Anna Riley has a story for you.
Scarborough. It's Britain's oldest seaside resort and a town visited by tourists from near and far. But from September, North Yorkshire Council are banning motorhome owners from parking overnight in spots here and in Whitby and Caton.
One individual motorhome or camper van isn't a problem, but when you get tens, if not hundreds of these gathering in a particular location, that does create problems. They generate significant amounts of waste, as you can imagine, noise, disturbance issues as well, and obviously there is safety implications for the camper van motorhome owners themselves. We have had some fires reported, so this is about the safety of motorhome camper van owners as well as the amenity for local residents.
Tourism is at the heart of Scarborough, and business owners stress that all are welcome, but want facilities to be used correctly.
We are very lucky to have the Marine Drive, which is basically a linear park and ride for the town. A standard large motorhome will take up 2 to 3 parking spaces, and there is a limited amount of parking, 400 to 500 places. And if they are taken up completely by motorhomes, which they are, unfortunately, then there really isn't anywhere for our day trippers and people that want to come and enjoy the resort for a couple of hours or a few hours to actually use. And it isn't designed to take these sorts of vehicles, however much they're welcome, because Scarborough is open to everybody. We also have a problem with free campers at the moment. On top of that, with the camper vans, we're turning the whole of that Castle Headland into a free camping site, and that's not what it's designed to be.
The council urge they are not waging war against the camper van and motorhome community. But the planned overnight ban has caused anger among some owners of the tourist vehicles.
The wrong people are getting punished. It's all the idiots that are coming in cars that are racing up and down at night time, lighting fires, having barbecues. The people in the motorhomes aren't doing that. Instead of banning people, they want to get some enforcement, drive round, issue fines there and then on the spot. It's a waste of time, but as soon as the ban's in force, I won't be coming back.
We're spending money here, like people that stop overnight are going to go for breakfast and drinks like in the evening. They're going to spend money here. It would put us off coming if we couldn't stop overnight.
It's not as if you're outside someone's house or like that, you're out of the way.
The ban will be enforced between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. for the next 18 months. After 6 months, the plan could be made permanent, altered, or even scrapped. Anna Riley, GB News.
Thank you very much, Anna. Right, OK, well, my dad, when we were younger, when we were kids, and whenever it's a bank holiday, you'd be all piled in the car and we'd go down to Southend or Jaywick or Clacton if we were very lucky. And if ever Dad got stuck behind a motorhome or a caravan, as it used to be back in the day, the language in the car would be... he went in full-blown Jeremy Clarkson mode. So I'm kind of understanding... I know it's a different thing because this is on the road, but I'm kind of with the good people of North Yorkshire on this one. What do you think of this one? Caravan, do you have nightmares? Do you have traumas from childhood about caravans?
Yeah, we didn't do caravan holidays, but my dad was exactly the same. If he was going to be stuck behind one, the language that came out was quite something. He used to turn the music up a little bit louder. But it's one of those issues which is going to divide communities, because those who have caravans or motorhomes are going to feel that they're being hard done by. However, when you look at the spaces available for people in their cars, there aren't very many of them. And if a camper van is going to take up 3 car parking spaces, then that's 3 loads of sort of day trippers or whatever not being able to park. I don't think banning it's the right answer, but I do think there needs to be some kind of compromise met to have a specific place where you can park up overnight should you wish, that isn't going to cause any problems if you do have a little barbecue. But equally, you know, people should be responsible for their own mess as well, so they shouldn't leave mess behind. And I can see why the locals are really irritated by it.
You're going to...
Oh, my God.
Yeah, again, I find myself agreeing with Claire, which is actually twice in one show. That's must be a record. I think that the answer to something like this is a proper site for them. And you have proper camping sites. You wouldn't expect people to be pitching tents in the middle of a car park or anything like that. So a proper site is the answer. I can understand the locals being upset about it, the rubbish that people don't take away, they should. Yes. If you've got hundreds of camper vans where they don't mind 1 or 2, but that would be too much. So yes, but we don't know what sort of proper sites they are providing. I think Claire said some kind of compromise between both sides, and that would be the obvious compromise.
Yeah, good luck getting there in the first place, mind you. It is a bank holiday weekend, and the roadworks all over the place. So a little quiz for the panel here, by the way. Speeds on British motorways are the slowest on record, and the government-owned National Highway says it's pausing 79.5 miles of roadworks for the bank holiday weekend. However, which motorway in the United Kingdom do you think has the slowest speeds on it?
Got to be the M25.
Yes, without a doubt.
OK, that wasn't a tricky one, was it? And OK, which has the fastest speeds on it?
I'd have thought the M1.
This is going to be sort of the M6 toll road, because there's no one on it.
Oh, that's clever.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you didn't say that toll roads were included in this.
That's a motorway.
It's a motorway.
It's got the M in front of it.
It's a motorway. But I mean, why have we got to such a state in this country where, you know, you can't drive anywhere because the roads are so... Yes. So knackered. And when you get there, especially if you're in a caravan, you can't park anywhere.
Or if you do park, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to park there for a few hours. If anybody's been down to Brighton recently.
Roadworks with no one working on them.
Oh, yeah. No, we're all... You're agreeing with your wife again on that one. That's scary. We have to move on, but good luck if you are driving somewhere this weekend. I'm Dawn Newsom, this is GB News, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. Now, a bit of royals for you. King Charles is open to a truce with Harry after receiving advice from spiritual leaders and has taken spiritual nourishment. I've got no idea what that means, so let's find out after this very short break.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I want to see a flagpole, and I want to see the Union Jack when it's necessary. I must say I don't want to see some other flags, maybe, but that's my opinion. I'm classed as a dinosaur. I'm an oldie, so I go for what I want to know.
Well, you're not a dinosaur in our books. What would you say to the people who
were complaining about the Union flag and saying that it's a sign of national. What's your response to them?
Well, in this village, best thing is for them to get out of it. I'm being quite blunt. That's how I feel. I've lived in this village 60-odd years, 62 years, nearly 63 years. We've never had this problem. In our early days, we all helped each other. No one went against anybody. We agreed things. We used to have meetings up the village hall, as it was then. And it was all OK, but all of a sudden we've got newcomers coming in, and I'm not against it because we've got quite a few, and a lot of them are damn nice people, but we've just got one or two who are a bit anti. And, you know, they don't do nothing much for the village, but they soon put the spoke in when we want to do something like that. That's my feeling.
But you think we should be proud of our national symbols, proud of our national flag?
Definitely, yeah. I was in the army. I only did national service, and when I finished national service, I was ill for a while actually. But anyhow, and then I went and joined the prison service, and that's so I've worked in things which, you know, the flag is important to us. We should always be proud of it. Not like these people that say we shouldn't have it because it might upset somebody because it's not their flag. Well, so what? You know, it's our flag, so we should be proud of it. Sod the rest of them. Excuse my... but that's me.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, and welcome back to The Weekend on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you're having a wonderful bank holiday weekend out there. Now, King Charles and Harry, wouldn't it be lovely if they had a truce and went back to being a family again, especially with the King being in ill health? Well, it could be happening because the King, according to sources, has been taking advice from spiritual leaders and is drawing comfort from that advice. So, and spiritual nourishment as well. And I'm a bit confused about what spiritual nourishment actually is, but I'm sure one of my very intelligent panellists will be able to explain. But the fact that, you know, maybe things could be patched up a bit here, Nigel, it would be nice for the family.
It would be
especially
nice,
seeing
yeah.
as the King and Catherine are both poorly at the moment.
Yeah, and bear in mind that King Charles is very devout. He has been all his life, like his mother. Now, we don't know quite where the spiritual nourishment is coming from. If it's the Church
What
of
is spiritual nourishment?
I think advice, basically.
Oh, right, OK.
Yeah. So the idea would be that the Church of England, for instance, is big on forgiveness. So if this was coming from the Church of England, it would be forgive Harry, just, you know, bring him back into the fold. It doesn't quite explain this story where this spiritual advice is coming from. Of course, the King has also been very keen on other religions. He once wanted to be defender of faiths and defend them all.
Yeah.
So it may be he's getting it from somewhere else. But broadly, all religions would actually say, look, forgive one another. That's always the best way forward.
I mean, obviously, Claire, he is head of the Church of England, but he has, you know, pledged to protect the multiple faiths of a diverse Britain. However, if we go back to Harry's memoir, where he called Camilla a wicked stepmother and the other woman, it takes a lot of forgiveness to get over that sort of thing. I mean, that's...
Yeah, well, he kind of does. When you've got Harry and Meghan sitting out there earning millions of dollars out of Netflix and other shows and books and going on sort of pretend royal tours to places like Colombia, and you sort of think, do they deserve the forgiveness? Now, you know,
no spiritual nourishment from over there.
No, well, it's just the common sense angle of it. I mean, I just know that I wouldn't be able to be the bigger person probably in that case, and I mean, yes, wouldn't it be lovely if they were all happy families? But name me one family that is completely happy and there are no arguments, and you know, you're not going to find
struggling
one.
a bit in present company with that one. But But the thing is, I mean, you know, a child, bless him, can be taking all the spiritual nourishment from all the faiths that he wants. One little sticking point here is William. I don't think he's taking spiritual nourishment with regard to his younger brother. They haven't even spoken for 2 years, have they?
No, it seems not. And that rift sounds like one that's going to be very difficult to mend. But if it is mendable, who would be in a better position to mend it than their father? So if this was to actually happen, I mean, surely we'd all think it would be really great if Harry could come back and actually be part of that family again. Harry also has to get his act together, so it works both ways.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, it does. He wanted to go off and not be a working royal, and he wanted to go and live a life of privacy.
By going on to Colombia, which is much safer than going to Windsor.
Can't possibly come to the United Kingdom, but can go to sort of downtown Bogota on a Tuesday and feel perfectly safe. I mean, it's ridiculous.
With a ballistic briefcase.
Yeah.
I was quite fascinated by the ballistic briefcase.
I was more impressed with that than anything else, to be honest, and I wanted that to be front and centre. But, I mean, it's up to them as a family to sort out, and I think all of the constant speculation, and you've got William and Catherine, who are dealing with probably quite a lot with Catherine's illness, but also being working royals and having a family and just having to get on with it. You can understand that probably William isn't going to be extending the hand of brotherly friendship anytime soon.
However, in true journalistic style, a spokesman for Buckingham Palace has declined to comment. Well, that's it. Thank you very much. You're running out of time. Thank you very much, Claire and Nigel, for joining me this afternoon. But don't go anywhere, because Darren's up next with a cracking show. Hope you're having a wonderful bank holiday out there. Enjoy yourself, stay safe, enjoy the weather. Talking of which, here's Greg with all the details you need to know for that Bank Holiday Monday.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Showery rain starting to clear as we head into Monday, a little drier and brighter and warmer. For many of us, with the winds falling a little lighter, low pressure starting to move away, a brief ridging of high pressure moving in for Monday, which is a bank holiday for some of us, ahead of further wet and windy weather moving in to the northwest later on in the day. For the end of Sunday and overnight, we can see showery rain still affecting parts of Northern Ireland, southern Scotland, northern England. Elsewhere, clear spells and scattered showers. The breeze still fairly brisk around the coasts, and that will keep temperatures up. Temperatures for most of us 13 to 15 Celsius. So a warmer start to Monday compared to what we've seen over the weekend. This weather front will continue to give showery rain across southern Scotland, northern England. Across the rest of Scotland, generally brighter with a few scattered showers, winds lighter Monday morning. Northern Ireland also seeing some sunny spells, a few showers around. Temperatures across northern England around 14 or 15 Celsius under the cloud. Variable cloud across parts of Wales, a few showers possible, whilst much of the rest of England generally dry, though some showers across southeast England clearing through Monday morning. And then through the day, as that ridge of high pressure builds in, it largely stays dry and bright. There'll be some sunny spells, but quite a bit of cloud around for most of us. Showers across northern parts of the Midlands, northern England into southern Scotland, but most places staying dry. And with lighter winds, just feeling a bit warmer. Temperatures high teens to low 20s, highs around 23 Celsius towards the London area, so just a little improvement for some. Then into the evening time, further wet and windy weather starts to move back in across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. Over the next few days, it stays wet and windy across the northwest, but temperatures start to rise in the sunshine, particularly by midweek towards the southeast, highs around 28 Celsius.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's the final week to see how you could win an incredible £30,000 in cash. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. Time is ticking. Get your entry in now. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes, she could have said storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
It went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning